witnesses, Mr. Simmons certainly knows about this active espionage operation. It includes members of the WASP network convicted for trying to penetrate U.S. military installations. Also includes cyber attacks in the United States, State Department officials who were turned into spies for the Cuban regime and compromised important U.S. foreign policy information, and an espionage network that included a former senior defense intelligence official who provided highly classified information to the Cuban regime about U.S. military activities and whose spying may have caused the death of U.S. servicemen operating in Latin America. This is serious stuff indeed. This is a regime responsible for the murder of 3 American citizens and a U.S. resident in 1996 in the Brothers to the Rescue shootdown. So it is incomprehensible and indeed appalling to see the Department of State facilitating access to our nation for these enemies of the United States. From Washington, D.C. to San Francisco, Castro operatives want to travel to the United States, and the State Department will grant them a visa. Just today, earlier today, news reports confirm that state did in fact issue a visa to the daughter of dictator Raul Castro, Mariela Castro, to attend a conference in California next week. Mariela Castro is a communist regime sympathizer. She's part of the regime. She has labeled Cuban dissidents as despicable parasites. Those are her words. There are also reports that Eusebio Leal, tasked by the regime to expand tourism to the island under the guise of serving as a historian of Havana, is also being granted a visa to speak at the Brookings Institute tomorrow, Friday. Just a few weeks ago, Josefina Vidal Ferreiro, a senior official from the regime's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, whose husband was expelled from the United States for espionage activities, was also given a warm welcome by the Department of State. This disturbing pattern that is developing, where the doors of the United States are opened to officials and activists from state sponsors of terrorism countries, must not be allowed to continue. 3 of our colleagues and I sent a letter to Secretary Clinton, and it was signed, drafted by our colleague, Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart, and signed by the 3 Cuban-American members of Congress, Albio Ceres, David Rivera, and me, saying that this is just inconceivable that such visas and such a wonderful welcome had been given to these individuals. And in that letter, we affirm the intent and the requirements that are in U.S. law that the Secretary of State and the Attorney General are supposed to enforce, and that is a prohibition or a granting on the granting of visas to Cuban regime or Cuban Community Party officials, operatives, or designees. That is the law, and now we're faced with the possibility that the state may seek to thwart congressional oversight over decisions regarding travel by Cuban regime officials. State employees and officials have indicated that they may stop to honoring a commitment. It's been a longstanding agreement with me on behalf of the House Foreign Affairs Committee requiring notification of state actions concerning travel by Cuban regime officials. And this agreement was established in 1997, and it was adopted in lieu of a legislative mandate that I had included in funding legislation, and was honored by successive administrations except for this one. So I strongly urge the Department of State to immediately reverse its course, consider the threats to our nation's security interests posed by the Cuban regime that will be discussed later today, right now, by Congressman Mack's subcommittee. The administration must stop bending over backwards to accommodate the needs, the whims, the request of state sponsors of terrorism that, again, is located just 90 miles from our shores. So thank you, Mr. Mack. Thank you, Mr. Engel, and thank you to the witnesses for appearing today, and I thank you for your leadership, sir. And Albio, I had talked about you and discussed the letter that we signed.